Hi, welcome to this lesson. So we've been looking at the if-else statement, the conditional statements, and we looked at the if-else statement, right? There's also another part of the if-else statement, okay? It's called the else-if statement. So basically, it's used to specify a new condition. So you can specify a new condition if the first if condition was false, and you can keep going on like that. So you can like you can ask this like this. So if I'll give you the English version of it first. See, so it's basically something like this. If condition 1 is true, then you're going to execute some statements like this, right? Else, if condition 2 is true, you're going to execute more statements like this. Again, else, if condition 3 is true. So basically what this means is both condition 1 and condition 2 are not true and only condition 3 is true. In that case, you're going to execute this statement. And you can keep going on like that. And finally, if none of these conditions are true, what do? You're going to execute the else statement as usual. So instead of just giving if and else, in between you can give a lot of else ifs, okay, like this. All of these are small letters, okay? As I told you before, JavaScript is case sensitive, so please be careful about that. All of these are small letters. So between the if and the else, there are a lot of else ifs. Okay, else space if, as always a space. It's an essential space. So else if you can give you can give more conditions like this, and you can see if those conditions are true. I'll show you an example of how it works. But before that, let me tell you about the syntax. So as usual, you have to give if in here, and within your parentheses, you have to give your condition 1 like this, and within your flower brackets, you can give something like this: statement 1, statement 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, and after that, the space is not compulsory. Okay, so you can give the space, you can also start immediately. Instead of just giving the else statement, you can give else if. Okay, so if the first condition is not true, let's look at another condition. Let's check for another condition. So this condition would only be checked if this first condition is not true. If the first condition is true, then it will just execute these statements and it will just come here to the next lines of code immediately. Okay, none of the other if statements or else if statements or else statements, none of the statements would be executed. So if first condition is true, then it will just execute these statements and immediately jump. The browser would actually jump to line number 30 like this. Okay, so else if you're going to give another condition 2, okay, and you're going to give your statements like this. Okay, it can be multiple statements like this, and then you can give another else if needed. You can give another else if, and you can give condition 3. You can check for the condition 3, and you can give more statements like this. Again, multiple statements, and this condition 3 would only be executed if both condition 1 and condition 2, both of them, okay, both of them are false. So if condition 1 is false and if condition 2 is false, then it'll come to condition 3 and it'll check for condition 3. So if condition 3 is true, this will be executed. If not, it'll keep moving on, and it'll keep moving on to the next else if, and it'll keep moving on like that. Okay, and after that, finally, it's going to come to your else statement like this, right? So it's going to come to else statement, and you're also going to get a couple of statements, multiple statements, and this else statement will only be executed if all of these statements, okay, you can have n number of statements, n number of else if statements. Okay, so if all of the n number of conditions are false, then your else statement would be executed. So that's how that works. Okay, so you understand how that works, right? So let me show you an example of how it works so you understand it better. So let's look at an example now. Right. So let's create a variable num and assign it a value 5 like this. And let's also create another variable called secret num in camel casing, where n is caps, right? I already taught you about camel casing, and assign it a value 10. So num if num is lesser than secret num like this, then we are going to ask your browser to log something to the console, something like go a bit higher like this, okay? And then we are going to check for another number, okay? As if num is greater than secret num. Okay, so we've already established that num is lesser than secret num. So if num is lesser than secret num, fine. If num is not lesser than secret num, then maybe it's greater than secret num. Maybe that's the case. So we're going to check for that next, and we're going to log that to the console. Go a bit lower, like this. Else is basically what is left. So if it's not lesser, it's not greater, essentially it means if it's equal. So we don't have to give that condition anymore, because we already looked for lesser than and greater than. So we're just going to log, you guessed it right, like this. So this is just an example of how it works. You can come up with multiple examples like that if you want. So the else statement at the end should be something that hasn't been given in the condition so far. So it's basically something where you don't have to give the condition. So even if without giving the condition, it's given that that's the thing. So we haven't given the condition num is equal to secret num, but we've already covered everything else. So it's a given that that's the condition in your else, right? So that's how it works. So let's look at the output. Let's save this. Sorry about that, I haven't given my semicolon in here. I'll just refresh it now, and there you go. It's telling me to go a bit higher because the number I've given is actually 5 and it's lesser than secret num. On the other hand, if I give something like 15, what happens then? So it's going to tell me to go a bit lower like this. That's fine. I'll just try with the exact number, the number 10. You guessed it right. So that's how it works. So did you see what I just did with this particular program? I've just created guessing the number game. And it's very primitive. Of course, it's very primitive. It's not a proper guessing the number game, but I've just created the bare bones of it. So that's how this works. So that's your else if statement. So that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.